Hey everybody, this is John over at San Marino Music Center, and this lesson is all about power chords. Okay, so this video is about closed power chords. Closed power chords are your movable power chords, so sometimes you'll hear them be called closed power chords, sometimes you'll hear them be called movable power chords. It's all the same thing. The ones that we're going to cover today are 6-string power chords and also the 5th-string power chords. And the way you form a power chord shape is you have finger number 1 is going to be either playing the 6th string or the 5th string on any fret, and then finger number 3 is going to be on the next string at the 5th string at the 3rd fret, and then 4th string at the 3rd fret as well. So that's your power chord shape. Now this shape can be moved up and down the neck to get any type of power chord. What I mean by any type is this is an F power chord, a G power chord, the root being based on the 6th string with the 1st finger. When you switch to the 5th string power chords, then the root is based on the 5th string with the 1st finger. But essentially they're the same shape. Now what becomes important when you're playing power chords is the strings that are supposed to be muted. So any power chord is composed of basically 2 strings. When you add the pinky, that's actually an extra note that really fills out the sound. Okay, and then for the 6-string power chords, the bottom 3 strings are to be muted. So you can't hear any notes coming out of those. And that's really the important key when it comes to power chords. If you're playing power chords and you're not muting properly, your power chords are going to sound like this, which sound pretty muddy and pretty ugly. Okay, but if you're muting properly, then you're just going to get the pure power chord sound, which is this. Okay, now how do you mute? Well, what you do is the 1st finger here, which is playing the 6th string, is going to lightly touch the underside of the bottom 3 strings. So you don't want to push down in order to do a bar. So you don't want this. You don't want to push down hard enough so that you get those notes to sound out. You want to touch them ever so slightly so that you don't get those notes to sound out. If you don't mute properly, then you really have to watch out what you strum to make sure that you don't hear the bottom set of strings. And that becomes ever so difficult, so it's better to develop a good muting technique. Okay? Now what you want to do is when you're first practicing these power chords is basically pluck them 1 string at a time all the way down to the 1st string, and just ensure that the strings that are supposed to be muted are in fact muted. If you're hearing something like this or something like this and not this, then you need to take a look at your muting technique and fix it. You're either pressing too hard, which you get the F minor chord, or you're not touching enough strings, and then you get the open string sound. Okay, once you're doing the mute technique proper, then you can start sliding up to the other positions. I'm doing all the natural notes on the 6th string, so that was F, here is G, here is A on the 5th fret, B on the 7th fret, everything is muted. Then we go to C, then to D, and if you can, you go to fret 12, which is E, back to D, back to C, back to B, everything muted, sounding good. A on the 5th fret, G on the 3rd, back to F. Okay? And one thing that you notice is as I'm moving down, I'm not breaking the shape. All the fingers move basically at the same time. So you don't want to break the shape like this, go to the new root, and then have to reform. Break and reform, break and reform. Avoid that. Make the shape slide so all the fingers slide at once. Now to the 5th string power chords. This one can be a little bit more difficult because you have to mute the 6th string. But if all your fingers are down here, how do you mute the 6th string? Well, what you do is you touch the underside of the string with your first finger like this. You can't really tell, but I'm touching it. And you pluck it, you don't get a sound. So you're supposed to mute string 6, string 2, and string 1. String 2 and string 1 are muted with the underside of the first finger, and that's pretty easy. String 6 needs to kind of flatten out on the 5th string, and you have to have enough skin pushing up to it so that that string is muted. So if you're not touching the 6th string, your power chords are going to sound like this. Which again sounds muddy and ugly. If you are muting properly, they're going to sound like this. Which is nice and clean sound. Okay? So now the exercise on the 5th string, we're going to do all the natural notes. So we're starting on B, which is the 2nd fret. So we've got B. Then we move to C on the 3rd fret. Next is D on the 5th. Next is E on the 7th fret. F on the 8th fret. G on the 10th fret. Then A on the 12th fret. Back to G, fret 10. Back to F, fret 8. Fret 7 is E. Fret 5 is D. Fret 3 is C. And lastly, back to the B. Right? So, having those techniques is really going to help out your power chord sound. So remember, the most important thing to the chords is having a good muting technique, regardless of whether you're playing a 6th string or a 5th string power chord. And the other side to that, having a good muting technique, is moving between the shapes, but keeping the chord shape intact. Moving from one place to the next, but keeping those fingers intact. Okay? And once you got that fixed, and you can play pretty much almost any rock and roll song, like this one. I'm trying to find it. Right? So happy rocking out.